Good morning, all. If you haven't already, on the bottom of your screen in the middle is chat. Please type your name in and you can ask questions there as well. This will help Mrs. Jacket with attendance. Mrs. Jacket? Not talking to me again, huh, Beth? That happens. Don't worry, Carissa, that happens all the time. I don't know if she's having trouble or not. We're gonna get started here in just a minute. There may be one or two more that want to sign in. Be sure on chat, type your name in and hit
we can
return
hear
for
him,
everyone.
but he can't hear us talking to him.
Mrs. Jacket?
Can you hear us, Mr. Babcock?
I'm gonna call him. Can you hear me? Hello?
Carissa, unmute yourself and talk. I don't know what.
Hello.
Okay.
Can everyone else hear me? Yeah, okay.
No.
Well, while I'm unmuted, hi guys, I'm Carissa. I'm one of the virtual assistants. I'm here to help with math. So if you need any help with any of these things, with the notes, with the problems, anything,
I can't hear you, Carissa.
I'm here to help. We can do email, we can set up our own time to meet, or we can do during the study sessions as well. So if you need any help.
Carissa, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Dang it.
So if you need any help, don't be afraid to reach out. I'll put my email in the chat so that you guys can have it.
Well, Carissa, I'm going to sign out and sign right back in. Okay?
All right. How's everyone's morning going? Or afternoon? What time is it? Oh, afternoon. I guess it's afternoon now. Afternoon. Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? Is it like a mess? How's it going? Oh, got some this. Got some goods. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. We'll make it better. We will make it better. Oh, I need to put my email. I got
Okay,
to
Carissa, say something now.
Hello. Hello, hello.
I wonder what's wrong.
All right, guys, my email has been posted in the chat.
Stop video chat. Carissa, now unmute yourself and say something.
Hello. Hello, hello, hello.
Okay, I got it.
Yay.
Well, we're going to get started here. Mrs. Jacket, are you there?
I have been here and I've been talking to you this
I'm
whole
sorry, Mrs.
time.
Jacket. Did you get all the names or do we need to sign in again?
Somebody has, yes. You're good.
Well, we're going to get right into the lesson. Most days we go like this. I hope you have something, part of being an adult is being able to take good notes. So I hope you have a notebook to take notes in, and usually the classes will go like this. If there's a quick announcement or it takes a minute or two to get started, and then I'll go to examples, and then I'll work the classwork together. The classwork's already posted, and I hope you're able to look and see it. We'll work most days, all or most of it in class, and then the homework assignment you'll have until the next Wednesday to look at it. And I picked topics that I think will be helpful to you. Some of them maybe is review, I hope, and then some of them will be new as well. Are there any questions before we get started? Okay, I'm going to share my screen with the smart board. I have all kinds of troubles.
Hey, sir, while you're doing that, I'm just going to tell them, make sure that anything that he writes down, you're writing down in a notebook, and because he's eventually going to go over your classwork with you, and you're going to need to turn that in and receive points. So he's going to do it with you, and you're going to get points for it.
Hope that made sense to everyone. In other words, each week there's two things that you'll get. One is the classwork that we're doing in class, and then the homework. Mr. Jacket will look at all that, and you'll get points for it. So take notes. 45 minutes goes by in a real hurry, so sometimes you may not have a chance to answer all the questions, and I would encourage you to either do one of two things. Use Carissa. She's pretty good, and she can contact me if she needs to. Smile, Carissa. It's not a smile, that's a grimace. Yeah, 2 thumbs up from Carissa. And or you can replay I believe there's going to be posted lessons on YouTube on Google Classroom. So either one of those things. I want to help you. I want to welcome you to Upper Bound for 2020. For some of you, it may be your first time with Upper Bound, but just take notes, stay with it, and I bet you come out okay. Let's get right into the lesson. Today's week 1, and if you want to look at the recordings, I'm not sure how they'll do them, but look at the first slide. It'll always say, just like this one does, what week it is and what level it is. And you want to make sure you get the right one if you're listening to it again. The overall topic today is working with real numbers. That's the whole number line, and doing a variety of things we should know how to do with real numbers. Under that is sets of numbers. You know the difference between rational and irrational numbers and what sets fall under those as well. Next, evaluating numerical expressions. PIMDAS is order of operations. We should know that. That means parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide together, and then add, subtract last. And we'll take a look at some of those. But evaluating numerical expressions and order of operations. Solving equations, we're going to look at today as well, and several of the weeks we're going to look at solving equations. That's a big thing we do with the real numbers. Well, let's take the first topic, sets of numbers. Let's use this diagram here and break the number. In other words, if you look at the number line, you could break it into 2 sets of numbers, irrational and rational numbers. The definition is this: if it's a rational number, I can write it as a fraction. In other words, some examples: 3 is a rational number. -8 is a rational number. 3/4 is a rational number. 0.75 is a rational number. That's the same as 3/4. They're interchangeable. 0.7, repeating. All repeaters can be written as a fraction. So if anybody says, no, it's not rational, and someone says, yes, it is rational, you have to be able to write it as a fraction. Examples of irrational numbers would be the square root of 2. That's 1.414, and it just goes on and on. It never repeats in a pattern. Let's look at some of the different sets as well. The rational numbers is what nearly everyone learns first. To start with, you'd have the counting numbers. You can't remember not knowing the counting numbers, and sometimes they're referred to as the natural numbers. It seems natural to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and every one of the natural numbers is rational. Every one of them is rational. Somewhere along the line in grade school, all of you added 0 to that. In other words, I take this, I add 0 to it, and that set of numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. They're called the whole numbers. And then usually late in grade school or sometimes in middle school, you would add to this set the negative numbers. And when you do that, you get the set of integers. And we can do a lot with those. Most equations, one of the things we're going to do today is solve equations. Most of the time, we want the answers to be integers. But sooner or later, somewhere along the line, usually in late grade school or middle school, you picked up numbers like this: 1/2, 0.37, 2.81, 0.3 repeating. You get the decimals and fractions. That makes up, when you put all those together, we get the set of rational numbers. Every one of those numbers that I've written here, I can write as a fraction, any one of them. For example, someone said, well, I picked 2, write it as a fraction. Okay, it's 2 over 1. It's a rational number. Someone says, well, I pick 0.37. Well, that's 37 hundredths. Someone says, well, I picked 33333. Well, that's 1/3. So anytime you can write it as a fraction, it's a rational number. And the uniqueness of it is, when we go to the number line, I know exactly where these numbers are. Someone said, where's 2 on the number line? Well, here's the number line. 2 is right here. I know exactly where it is. Irrational numbers, they don't seem nearly as organized. Examples are pi. You say that's 3.14. That's not really pi. If you have your calculator there, your pi key is on the right side towards the middle. Hit second pi, and the calculator says it's kind of 3.14. It says 3.14, 1592, 65, 4, goes on and on. It's not a terminating, there's a terminating decimal, and it's not a repetitive decimal. Pi is irrational. Square root of 3 is irrational. It's 1.71, goes on and on and on. So these numbers are not exact. I can't tell you where they exactly are. For example, if someone said, Mr. B, where's pi on the number line? Well, here's 3, here's 4. Pi is somewhere in here, somewhere. And they're harder to work with. But if you take the irrational and rational, there's no gaps on the number line. They make the complete number line. And when you put them together, they're called the real numbers. Set of real numbers. And there's properties that we have we'll look at. And we ought to know the names of them. In other words, when someone says whole numbers, oh, I know the rational and the whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, and on they go. If someone said, well, the number's irrational, you ought to know that, oh, it's not exact, and writing it as a fraction A over B, I can't do that with an irrational number. Well, let's do some examples here. Square root of 36. Is it rational or irrational? It's rational. And it's a natural number. It's 6. Okay? It's also an integer. So square root of 36 comes out nice. What about 1/2? What would you say about it? Well, it's a rational number. That's all I can really say about it. It's not an integer. It's not a natural number, like 30 square root of 36, which is 6. What about this one? You start answering. What kind of number is that? Rational or irrational? Have your answer? Square root of 7 minus square root of 7 is 0. It's rational. It's a whole number. It's an integer. Only thing it wasn't, it's not a natural number. Natural numbers don't have 0. What about the next one? Get it. What can you say about it? Square root of 7. It's irrational, the first one we've had. If you look at it, it's around 2.6, but it just goes on and on. I can't tell you exactly what that is. What about 0.77777777? What about it? It is a rational number. Now, if we got to an argument on that, someone would say, well, write it as a fraction. Let's see if we can do that. I think it's 7/9. Take your calculator and divide right now if you have your calculator. Take 7 and divide it by 9. You get 7, 7, 7, a bunch of 7s, and then maybe an 8 at the end. It's a repeater. All repeaters are rational numbers. All repeaters are rational numbers. We may do some more of those here in a little bit. Do those. What about this one? What can you say about that number? Got it? Is it rational or irrational? It's a rational number. What is it as a fraction? It's 1/4. It is 25 hundredths. Both of those are correct. This was reduced and this was not. Once you write it as a fraction, it reduces it. It gets rid of the argument. If it's a fraction, it's a rational number. Is it an integer? No. Whole number? No. It's just a rational number. What about that? Is it rational or irrational? It's -2. Oh, it's irrational, isn't it? Is it an integer? Yes, it is. Whole number? No. Whole number is 0, 1, 2, 3. No negative numbers and whole numbers. But it's a rational number, and it's an integer. What about this right here? The square root of 6 times the square root of 6. It's a rational number, isn't it? When you multiply roots, I get 36. Square root of 36 is 6. Oh, it's an exact number. Someone says, no, it's not. What is that as a fraction? Well, it's 6/1. 6/1. Oh, that ends the argument. Is it a whole number? Yes. Is it an integer? Yes. Is it a natural number? Yes. It's in all the sets. It's such a common number, it's hard for you to remember when you didn't know or understand the value of 6. It's just a thought, okay? It's something that's abstract, but it's something we've had for such a long time, it seems like it's very well defined for us. Let's talk about evaluating expressions next. You can't remember not doing that. In other words, somewhere in 1st or 2nd grade, they said evaluate this expression. Well, we would say this, the most common answer is, we'd say it's 3. In other words, we use symbols of math all the time. Now that's pretty easy, but evaluating expressions are not always that easy. In other words, it's an expression because it doesn't equal anything, and they expect us to change it or say, oh, I can't change it. That's what we most commonly say. No, it's not. What we most commonly say is this. Again, this is what we would see in grade school, and we would accept that. However, couldn't I say this? Isn't that also 5? It is. But usually when we evaluate or simplify expressions, we'll take what's most commonly accepted, unless there's a reason not to. Let's take a look at this one. All of you try that one. Evaluate that expression. Now, before you get into it, remember PEMDAS. Parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide, and then add and subtract last. You got to do them in that order, or you get different answers sometimes. PEMDAS. Everyone try simplifying that expression. It's not an equation because it doesn't equal anything. I want to know what we would call it. Go ahead and take about 15 to 20 seconds on that. Evaluate that expression. Okay, let's take a look at it. If you wanted to, you could use your calculator, but be careful on the calculator. The calculator sometimes, if you think you put it in right, you don't. I'll show you what I mean here in a little bit, but just be careful on the calculator. Is it a good tool? It sure is, but it has to be put in correctly. If I use order of operations, this comes first and that's second, even though that's second and that's last. So if I started this, I did the multiplication and division first. 16 divided by 8 is 2. 8 times 2 is 16. So there's the first step in PEMDAS. I wouldn't add here first and say, well, it comes first, that's 20. No, that's wrong. Order of operations says this and this come first. Next, add and subtract. 4 plus 2 is 6 minus 16. $6 minus $16 is a negative 10. With or without a calculator on order of operations. Let's try another one. Try that one. Use order of operations. Evaluate that expression. What's the most common accepted value for all of that? What would it be? Okay, with or without a calculator. Order of operations says parentheses and exponents. That's got to come first. So I'm not even looking at this right here yet. That just, I have to hold that till I do this. Inside here, this has to come first. So I have 8 minus 16. $8 spin 16 is a minus 8. So now then, this becomes 4 plus 16 divided by a negative 8. Next, multiply and divide. So that comes next, even though the addition's first. So now I have 4. 16 divided by a negative 8 is negative 2. $4 spend 2. Evaluate this is 2. with or without a calculator? Questions there? Think you're good? Let's try one more. Everybody use your calculator. If you have a calculator, do that one on the calculator. Everybody. Do that one on the calculator. Well, let's take a look at it. Look at the green. Did y'all put that in the calculator? Because that's what it says. Did you do that on your calculator in the green? Did y'all do that? Did you try it on your calculator? Did you get 11.75? Well, that's too bad because that's the wrong answer. Okay? I told you it's tricky on the calculator sometimes. I hate this in math, but we do it all the time in math. If you do this on the calculator, you must put in those understood parentheses. In other words, I'd have to do this in addition to the calculator, or I get the wrong answer. Even though the calculator says 11.75, that's not the answer to this problem. And the reason is, when you hit the division and did the 4 squared, it did the division first and then subtraction. Here's the correct answer, with or without a calculator. Remember, if you use a calculator, that division's tricky. You be sure to put in these parentheses here. They're required. 20 minus 4 is 16. 16 minus 8, 4 squared is 16, minus 8 is 8. 16 over 8, 2 is the correct answer. In other words, these two right here, this expression and this one right here, turn out to be the same value too. So just be careful. The calculator, I love using the calculator, but you've got to be careful with it. You've got to be careful. Okay, the last thing before we go to the classwork and start working together is solving equations. Now, somewhere back in grade school, it looks something like this. Okay, class, 3 plus happy face equals 4. What's Mr. Happy Face? And y'all said, well, if we're looking on the number line, teacher, here's 0, 1, 2, 3, and we go one more, okay, it's 4, so Mr. Happy Face must be 1, solving it, but they're not all that easy. But the concept is different. This is not an expression, it is an equation because you have something on both sides. And usually we want to find the number or numbers that make it true if there are something. And we're going to spend some time in the next month looking at that. These are two-step equations. Let's see if we can do those. On this first one, on the blue one, the first thing I would do is add 2 to both sides. There were no exponents or parentheses. I'd have to think about those first, but I'm just going to put the 2 on the other side. So I have 4x, 0 equals 16. Next, I would divide both sides by 4. 4 over 4 is 1, the identity. I end up with x equals 16 fourths, or 4. That is the solution set for the number that works. Now here's how you would check that. If someone says, no, that's not the right answer, and someone says, yes, all of mathematics goes back to the first grade arithmetic, second and third grade arithmetic. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide have to work. Well, let's see. Let's check this answer to make sure it's right. Let's take 4. 4 times 4 minus 2. $16 minus $2. Y'all it's the correct answer. It has to be put back in to check it. I always like to see and make sure that what I have is the correct answer. Let's do another one of those. Two-step equation solving. On this one right here, the first thing I would do is subtract 6. Both sides. It's real similar to the other. Add, that's 3Q. $6, spend $6 is 0. I can drop it, it's the identity. $21 minus 6 is 15. Next, multiply or divide. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. 3 over 3 is 1. Q equals 5. Let's see if that works. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 plus 6, is that 21? Yes, it is, so I had the right equation. This is a huge branch of mathematics, solving equation. And these are both 2 steps. And if you haven't done those, you need to be introduced to them. And then we'll work several this summer. I'm going to stop just a second before I go to the class worksheet. Is there a question? Unmute yourself, and we'll see if there's any questions. Krista, was there anything in chat that anyone's asked so far? Anyone have any questions? Okay, let's go to the classwork. Okay, what type of number is this? Repeating 3. That's repeating 3. 3, 3, 3, 3. Pick an answer. See which one you think it is. And notice this. On some of the newer tests, they're making more than one right answer. Select all that apply. When you see me do that, there's probably more than one right answer. You got it? Repeating 3 is 3/9 or 1/3. It's a rational number. It's not a natural number. It's not an integer. There was only one right one. So on that one, there's only one right answer. It's a rational number. Why is it rational? Because I can write it as a fraction. All rational numbers have that in common. Number 2, just got through doing this. Evaluate that expression. What does that equal? Be careful if you use a calculator. Go. Let's take about 15 seconds. What does that equal? What's the most common accepted expression we can put there? Go. It's an open response. Have your answer? If you did a calculator, want to do it all on the calculator, you've got to put those understood parentheses there. Okay? If you want to do it by hand, I do this. I do the numerator first. 6 times 4 squared. 8 plus 4 is 12. 24 squared comes next, and then at the end you divide by 12. And I think I would use a calculator there. Do we agree on 48? We agree on 48? With or without a calculator? Okay, let's go to number 3. If you multiply these radicals, the answer would be what type of number? Well, let's see if we can multiply these. Notice I did them in different colors. I did the roots in green and the non-roots in blue. When you multiply and there's roots involved, you got to multiply a root times a root, a square root times a square root. So if I do that, I like to do those first at the square root of 25. And then you multiply non-roots times non-roots, -8. Square root of 25, oh, I know that. That comes out real nice. So that's going to be a -8 times 5. 5 times 8 is 40, and it's -40. It's rational, so irrational is gone. It's not a natural number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's not a whole number. The only one that works here is an integer. It is an integer. Is it rational? Yes, it is. But notice rational number was not listed for us up here. So be sure to always look at the answer. The answer is D. Number 4. Simplify that expression, with or without a calculator. Well, let's see if we can do it together. PIMDOS, parentheses and exponents, that has to come first. So I have 20 divided by 6 divided by 6 plus 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 squared is 25. So there's my first 2 steps, doing the parentheses and the exponent. Next, you know what comes next? The division comes next. This has to come here. So I have 20 plus 6 divided by 6 is 1. Now it's our addition. 20 and 1 is 21. 21 and 25 is 46. You could have put the whole thing in like this in the calculator when we've gotten it correctly, because there are no implied parentheses or exponents. They're in the problem. So the answer is 46. Number 5. What are the solutions to this equation? Sometimes they have more than one. It says select all that apply. Well, I better look at all the answers. Let's solve this one. You get 3x plus 5 equals 20. What's the first thing you do? Subtract 5. What do you do next? Divide by 3. Divide by 3. So x equals 15/3. So the answer is D. Now I'd get ticked at myself if that's what I did. You really need to look at all the answers. There's a case where you have 2 correct answers. 5 is correct. In fact, 5 is probably the most accepted answer. But 15/3 is not incorrect. What kind of number is that? Is that rational or irrational? It's rational, it's an integer, it's a whole number, it's a natural number, and it's rational. It's all of it. Number 6. Which numbers are irrational? Select all that apply. Try that one on your own. Give it a try. Have your answer? Square root of 7 times square root of 7, square root of 49, and that's 7. That's a rational number. Square root of 49 is 7, and that's a rational number. I don't know what the square root of 7 is exactly, and the same thing here. So the answer, there were 2 that worked there. A and D are both correct. They're both irrational numbers. Well, let's do a practical application of what we've been doing with numbers. The temperature at 6 o'clock, January the 6th, was 26 degrees. Chilly, cold January morning. By 10 o'clock, 4 hours later, it's gone up 6 degrees. Oh, okay, it's gone up, it's getting warm up. That's usually what happens here in town. So now it's right at freezing, 32 degrees. Then at 3 o'clock, it went up another 8 degrees. So now then, it's up to 40 degrees. However, by 9 o'clock that night, it had dropped 12 degrees. What is the temperature at 9 o'clock? 28 degrees. So there's an application, how we add, subtract, and how we use it. I have a few minutes left. Carissa, has anyone put anything in chat? Unmute yourself and ask a question if you have some. We have a minute or two. Carissa, unmute yourself and say something. I just want to make sure I can hear. Yep, okay, I can't do that. So
Yep.
Beth, are you there?
I am, sir.
Do I still have a minute?
No, you are out of time. There is
Are
no
you
time
sure I don't have at
for
least
today.
1 minute? Did you say yes, Beth? Well, that's good. If I have 1 minute, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. Let me do that for just a second here. Here's a question I'm sure all of you have wanted to know all along. Y'all don't look very happy. Now think about this. In what continent do they grow the most chili beans? I love chili. I'm going to have some for lunch. What continent do they grow most of the chili beans? Time's up. It's Antarctica because they're chili beans. Beth, I can't believe you give me a thumbs down on that. Was a good one. Chili beans, Antarctica, what continent? Oh, you people just don't appreciate good humor. Just remind you of a couple things. If you haven't taken that pre-post test, that pre-test, get it taken. It should have already been taken. You have 2 things to hand in.
Yes, there are several in this class who have not taken the pretest.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Miss
they
Jackie
did that
keeps
now.
up with that. Several of y'all haven't taken it. Get it today, please, if you haven't already, okay? Please do that. It should have already been taken. And then each week you'll have 2 things to do. The classwork, which we do in class, and then the homework sheet, which will be very similar to that if you take notes. You can use Carissa to help you in study hall. And then you can also use the recording if you want to see it. Is anybody down at the below at chat? I'm going to do it again. I just typed my name in and sent it to all so I could do for attendance. If you haven't done that, if you didn't do it on the first one, please do it now so we can get a record of your attendance. We're going to end the meeting here in just a second or two. I hope some of the stuff that we had today you already knew, and some of you didn't, but if you knew it all, it was a good review. And eventually you'll have things that you haven't seen before that'll be good for you. Has everybody signed in on chat? Okay. Well, I'll see you next Thursday at noonish. I usually open it up about 5 or 7 minutes till, so do that. Boss, is there anything you want to say or do?
I was just going to mention the Chrome extension that we had the last class had, and that if anyone was struggling or had questions about what we learned today, we're going to have study hall right after this, so you can join the lunch/study hall room instead, and we can talk about it there. But I don't have the link. John, do you have the link that they're supposed to add to Chrome? Okay. So you guys, in the chat, John is going to post a link. Please click it. It's going to add an extension to your Chrome browser. It's going to make it easier to submit the homework. So it helps you take a picture of your homework and submit it that way. So go ahead and click on that. It's in the link in the chat now. Make sure that gets added to your browser.
Okay, thank you. John, is there anything?
I don't think so. Miss Jacket, do you want to go over Cammi a little bit more? just for people who are not familiar?
Yes, I can do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, guys, so in your browser window, there's an apps square up here in the top left corner. You'll want to click on Web Store, and you're gonna type in Cammi, or you can use what John put in the chat, and it'll go straight to this place as well. From there, you're gonna click on Cammi Extension, and you're gonna add it or install it. I'm not sure what it says here, but mine's already installed. So, but you'll do one of those so that you can add it to your Chrome. And right up here, there'll be a blue K that gets put as an extension. So the reason you can do this is some of you are very comfortable taking a picture, you know, writing on notebook paper, taking a picture and loading it, but this is just an alternative. So if I'm in Google Classroom and I go to classwork and I click on the worksheet that was loaded for me, Cammi will open it. The first time after you set up your account, they'll actually be open with at this point, and there'll be a drop down arrow, and you'll have to go in and click open with Cammi the first time. But then once you do that, from here on out, it'll just be listed open with Cammi. You'll just click on that. It'll open that extension. It'll ask you, do you want to convert it? You will say convert, and it'll take just a minute to process it. And what this is doing is giving you the option of actually doing the worksheet electronically. And so from here, if you have a tablet that has a stylus or something to that effect, you can click draw over here and use that stylus. You could also use your mouse pad. Now I'll tell you, I'm not great at it, but you guys might be, but I can do the drawing, and I can come over here and do, you know, 4 times 6. Okay, that's 24, and, you know, squared. And then I can actually do the homework on the paper electronically. And then up here in the top right corner, you can save it back to your Google Drive and then upload it to Google Classroom from there. So Cammi is free right now because of COVID-19. They open that up for students to use. And so that's an option. There's also a text box, so you could actually type your stuff in. If it didn't have a lot of mathematical symbols and stuff, you could choose, you know, give me a text box, and then, you know, type in create that text box and type your stuff in there as well.